So you beat Valtan's pet wolves. Now it's time to face the Demon Beast Legion Commander himself. Beware though, because this is a much more technically complex fight than Gate 1, and one mistake can spell instant death. Remember, there are no extra lives in Legion raids. For your battle items, we recommend you slot your best healing potions, time stop to immune mechanics especially when you're out of position, and destruction bombs to break Valtan's armor. And of course dark bombs handy to do more damage during those big DPS windows. Let's just reiterate that for emphasis. Without destruction bombs, you will be griefing your team since you can't meaningfully contribute to armor break. Without time stop potions, you'll be seriously hurting your own chances of survival. Similar to Gate 1, there is an easy to follow flow for this fight, and you will have access to summonable champions to aid you. Using them correctly here is even more critical than before. You start the fight with the objective of destroying Valtan's armor by baiting him into charging walls. At 130x, Valtan will go immune and channel 2 strikes that wipe the party. The first can be dodged, but the second requires use of a champion or proper mechanics. At 110x, Valtan will jump up and teleport to the center of the screen, and then perform a pizza attack that can one-shot people. It's safe to say he does this one a lot. At 88x, he'll jump up into the air and land on a specific side, destroying it. This then leaves the arena open and makes everybody vulnerable to ring out, which is instant death by being knocked off. At 65x, Valtan will teleport to the center and initiate a counterable maneuver that can wipe the party if not dealt with. At 30x, Valtan will break the other half of the arena, making there no safe spots, easily knocking off everybody. And at 15x, Valtan will transition to the ghost phase. This is where people need to counter his clones to make him vulnerable to damage and actually finish him off. Remember that Valtan can transition into a phase later than the indicated health bar number, but never earlier. This is because he will finish out his attack pattern before moving on. Now when you start the phase, Valtan has a 2x buff that protects him from damage. You'll need to make him charge into the environment, making him vulnerable to destruction and break his armor. To do this properly, we recommend doing the following. Make sure there are pillars near you that he can charge into. This is more important than DPS. When he starts that charge, if you aren't near a pillar, get there immediately. Shortly after he begins his bull rush charge animation, a designated party member should throw a corrosive bomb, making him take even more destruction damage and making everybody's ability do +1 destruction. Everybody else should throw their destruction bombs as soon as Valtan crashes into the wall. If this is done correctly, Valtan's armor will break. You need to make sure this happens twice before 130x, and hold DPS if necessary. The one thing to watch out for here is him jumping into the air and raining down on you. Dodge the anchors by running in a tight circle to give room for your friends. At 9 anchors, make sure you're near an open edge of the arena, which is the destroyed wall or the south side entrance, to make sure you don't get hit for a ton. And in case of an emergency, time stop. This part of the fight is scripted with defined timings and will be easily repeatable, so after a few tries you should get the hang of it and become a script yourself. By this point you'll want to have broken Valtan's armor twice because you won't get that chance anymore. You will also notice during the previous segment that blue orbs fall to the arena when certain towers break. These are going to protect you from the wipe mechanic. If you are doing the wipe mechanic the proper way, each player should have an orb. However, this is inefficient and troublesome, so we're going to give you a better way. At 130x, the raid leader casts Balthor in the center. Everyone needs to gather in the circle and it does take some time to get this buff. Remember that the buff lasts a long time, so give yourself some breathing room and cast it early. As soon as Valtan raises his axe and goes immune to all damage, he'll perform the 2 wipe attacks in quick succession. You are going to be protected from both wipe blows and don't need a blue orb if you succeeded in standing in that Balthor circle. After that, Valtan will hang around a bit and jump into the air. When he comes down, the fight will begin in earnest, as he will get access to the majority of his moveset. Valtan will jump into the center once again and set his eyes on one person in the raid, highlighting them with a cone. You will notice 4 pillars appear at the corners. Everyone else should get behind one of these pillars. The guy with the cone should stand still between 2 pillars and wait for 4 seconds before dashing out and hiding behind one pillar too. If you're not fast enough though, you can use the time stop potion. Careful, because if the target cone overlaps with a pillar, then it will be destroyed, killing everybody behind it, and you don't want to be responsible for that. After that, Valtan will charge his axe and do the same mechanic once more, giving everybody but the targeted player a great DPS window. Most likely the cone will target the same player, so set the cone in a 1 position and don't move. Then count to 4 and dash out of it, and there's no need to get to cover after that as the rocks will all be destroyed. Valtan will jump into the air, pick a side and crash down on it, destroying everything. If you happen to be there, you will fall and die. The best thing to do here is gather in the middle and then go the direction that he does not. After he lands, he'll do another pillar pizza mechanic. This time it'll only happen once though, and the pillars will blow up shortly afterwards. Be careful here and don't greed DPS and get caught in the explosion. At this point, Valtan will jump up and land, channeling an animation with his fist in the air. After that, he will proceed to rev up a bull charge and go after someone. If the team doesn't counter him, he will continue to grab players until he picks up everybody and wipes the entire party. The counter time window here is pretty tight, so you need to anticipate it and execute it. It might take a few tries, but here are some tips. Count to 3 and then counter, or listen to the second grunt and counter right afterwards. Pick whichever option works for you. Pro tip though, it's a great time for a dark bomb after a successful counter. Valtan will jump into the air one last time. This time he'll land on the unbroken side, so make sure you're on the side that is already broken. Ram up against the edge and don't worry, you can't click off, but he can knock you off with his whirlwind if you're too close to the centre. Similar to the first Arena Destruction, after he lands he'll do another pillar pizza mechanic. Do what you did last time and watch out for his charge and grab afterwards. He has a high chance to do it and it's an instant kill if you do get caught. The arena is now smaller and you have to play extra carefully going into the ghost phase. At 15x, Valtan will summon a gate and rush to the centre of the arena. After a series of lethal attacks, he'll drop dead and then revive. There's a lot going on here, so we're going to break it down in the easiest way possible. At 15x, once he summons the gate, you want to use Balthor. This is the easiest way to deal with all of those different mechanics. Don't sweat it if you prefer to use Tyrain earlier, you can still dodge and then use the time stop potion. After he teleports to the centre, he'll pick a quadrant. He'll slam it and proceed to slam the others too. Dodge the first one and then go to that quadrant, and you're safe. After that, he'll then smash the ground 3 times, causing big explosions. Dodging them is pretty hard if you don't stick together as a group and move, as they target random players. Luckily you have Balthor buff, which will reduce damage and prevent you from being knocked off though. This still does a lot of damage though, so make sure you shield or heal up. If you don't have Balthor and want an easy solution, you must time stop after the 3rd ground smash. Shortly afterwards, 3 pillars will rise and the arena turns yellow. Get to one and hide. Move to the area with no pillar after the explosion, as the pillars will explode. Now begins the final part of this encounter. Valtan will restore 40 HP bars and summon clones of himself to overwhelm you. The Berserk timer will reset to 3 minutes as soon as this stage starts. You're going to have to burn through 40 bars in that time, so if you have too many dead and are not overgeared, it's going to be pretty difficult. However, due to how quickly the summon bar fills in this stage, it's doable with a few good players alive, so don't give up just yet. Valtan starts with 6 or 8 in hard mode armor buffs on him, so you're going to deal greatly reduced damage. To remove this buff, you need to counter his clones that appear on the sides of the arena. You're going to need to have specific people looking out for those clones and alternating, but make sure they have backup in case they fail. It's okay to miss a counter, just don't get knocked off by the clone attack. Watch out for his grab that he does every 10 bars. It's insta-death if you are caught, and it's followed by a huge yellow AoE that is going to knock you off if you're in front of him. Every counter fills your summon bar, so make sure you use Tyrain for massive damage to close out the fight. And you want to use your Dark Bomb before summoning the king. Your blood is going to be pumping through your veins during this part, and if your team is counting on you to nail that counter, it will be absolutely exhilarating. Keep your cool, enjoy yourself, and send the Demon King home to claim that loot. There's a lot going on in this fight, and now that you know everything's scripted, we're going to talk about how to deal with some of the more deadly unscripted events. As a general rule of thumb, stay close to him as the hilt of his axe does less damage than the blade, and it's easy to reposition yourself and strafe around him when you're close. We are going to talk about the attack patterns he can do that will wipe or cripple the group if not handled appropriately. Hold and counter. Valtan holds his axe at his waist in a steady stance. If players deal damage, Valtan will do a very big AoE spin, dealing heavy damage and knocking players away. This mechanic is very dangerous if the arena is broken, as it's likely a ring out. The safe spot is underneath his axe handle, so run there and wait. You can use a time stop potion if someone triggers this mechanic. Valtan will spawn 4 orbs that send waves of stagger across the arena. After a few seconds, those orbs will explode, causing damage, and if 4 orbs explode, it's going to be a wipe. To pass this mechanic, 4 different players must take these orbs. It will grant them a debuff that allows Valtan to deal more damage on them, but it's going to prevent the explosion. During this phase, Valtan will also charge, and someone should counter him. There's a lot of damage going out during this mechanic, so make sure you heal up if you don't have a good support player in your party. 3 counters. Valtan holds his axe in a ready stance above his head, and it must be countered 3 times. If successfully countered by a player, this player will then be silenced for 1 minute with a debuff aura around him that lasts for 4 seconds. If they touch any other player with the aura, it will silence them as well, so perform your counter and run away from your allies. If you fail the first counter, every single party member takes damage, but it is healable. If the second counter fails, however, every party member takes double damage. You really don't want to let this happen, as it's very difficult to recover from. And if the third counter fails, it's a wipe, so make sure this doesn't happen. When it comes to hard mode, some random players will be marked with a circle and some orbs will spawn and follow them. These are the same orbs that send waves of stagger, and those players should run away to the edges. Imprison. Valtan will roar and imprison random players. Think Yo-Ho Imprison mechanic. The free players must damage the prison with rapid attacks to help their teammates. Otherwise, Valtan performs an explosion that deals damage proportional to the number of remaining imprisoned players. In-out axe slam. Valtan will hold his axe high, preparing to smash the ground. The safe spot is determined if the axe is glowing or not. If the axe is glowing, it's safe outside, and if the axe isn't glowing, it's safe inside. It's important to note though, white explosions will target everybody, so remember to dash out after Valtan's smash. And finally we've got Stagger Check. Valtan will summon a big orb to absorb its power with a shield and a stagger bar on him. You will need to first deal damage to break the shield, and now you can stagger him with skills and whirlwind bombs. Make sure to dodge the explosions during this phase while performing stagger. If you fail to pass the stagger check, you're gonna wipe. You can of course use a time stop potion though. That should help you get on your way to taking down the Legion Commander Valtan. We wish you the best of luck and have fun.